Barry, and welcome everyone to this service of partial lockdown. And it's wonderful to be back at, if not physically, at least with the Padiham community and taking a service at Padiham Chapel with a wonderful picture of the chapel there. Thanks, Rob, and thanks for Rob for all his technical help generally. But also thank you to Barry for a lovely prelude, and great to see the organ too, and Barry playing it. So it almost feels like being back at the chapel. And as I said to Rob, though, the only thing I didn't have to do was drive up the hill. So great to be back, and welcome to this service today on wholeness, the theme of wholeness or finding wholeness. Now, just to mention as well that we'll have, at the end, we'll have a time for tea, so you could make a cup of tea at the end of the musical postlude, and then join us for some conversation, tea or coffee, and join us for conversation then, which will be great to hear from all of you. Mention as well that the musical meditation this morning will be very lively. I know they always are, but this may be even more than usual, in that it's a dance song from South Africa called Jerusalema, which is Jerusalem, the holy city. And it's become a huge smash hit in South Africa, and it's gone through Africa and a lot of the world. You can Google search it and you find many, many versions. We're going to see a particularly interesting version on the video later during a musical meditation. But I think it's nice to have a very lively musical meditation sometimes, and Jerusalema will certainly be one of those. So we begin our service as ever by lighting the chalice candle. And please say with me if you like the words. We light this candle as a symbol of our faith. By its light, may our vision be illumined. By its warmth, may our fellowship be encouraged. And by its flame, may our yearnings for peace, justice, and the life of the Spirit be enkindled. So here's our chalice flame. I won't keep it there all the time, I'm afraid, so it won't be in the picture, but its light will still be with us. And it's a Nightingale Center candle, I'm glad to say. And lovely to say these words again and welcome you all to this service. And now I think it's a chance for all of you to for any of you who would like to light a candle before the community with a few words or in silence, a candle of joy or concern.
I light my candle for all our friends who are receiving treatment at the moment, and remembering my sister and the family at this time.
I light my candle from my cousin who died 2 weeks ago, and they had the service for him in the woods in Vienna, and I spent a few minutes in the woods here thinking about him.
Thank you for all your words and concerns, for prayers spoken and unspoken. We give thanks. And now we'll start off, we'll continue with the service with Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the life, the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Well, we come now to a time, an opening prayer. Loving Spirit, we gather today to give thanks for our lives and the life we share. Although separated physically, today we come together seeking peace for ourselves and for this community. We come together to sing praises, to voice concerns, and to reflect deeply and honestly on our lives. And we come together to worship that sacred mystery that holds us all in being. We ask we may be given a glimpse of its truths. Amen. Now we come to the first hymn of the morning, which is Morning Has Broken, one of my favorites, as I'm sure you'll remember. I'm sure Barry's too, and all of yours. And of course, you have a chance to sing it at home as loudly as you would like, because we'll all be muted, and Robert will lead us in the singing, so that will be wonderful. Thank you, Rob.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where his feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
Let's join together now in saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now, the first reading today is from Psalm 1, the first psalm. Happy are those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or take the path that sinners tread, or sit in the seat of scoffers. But their delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law they meditate day and night. They are like trees planted by streams of water, which yield their fruit in its season, and their leaves do not wither. In all that they do, they prosper. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked shall perish. the first Psalm, and that was the New Revised Standard Version translation. Come now to a second hymn, and it's hymn number 42, A Dream of Widening Love. We rest a while in quietness. Hymn 42.
We rest a while in quietness, the world not to forget, but rather shape the silence and words of thoughts we've met to noble ways of living, to hope-filled truths above, on ourselves to seek one great dream of widening love. We share a world where sorrow and poverty and greed live side by side with privilege of wealth beyond true need. Yet though we cannot alter all ways of humankind, we ask a strength within us to right the wrongs we find. We know that strength is weakened by narrow truths and fears, that still we claim true knowledge, denying all the years. Yet here within the silence we question what we know, that through more honest persons all humankind may grow. To find eternal meaning deep in each passing hour, to seek beyond the confines of our small powers one power, strength deep within our being, arise as hope and will. Come silent living Spirit, with peace our spirits fill.
Now, our second reading today is from one of my favorite spiritual writers, Richard Rohr, and it's from his book, Immortal Diamond. And this is an extract from the book. There is something in you that is not touched by coming and going, by up and down, by for or against, by the raucous teams of totally right and totally wrong. There is a part of you that is patient with both goodness and evil to gradually show themselves exactly as God does. There is a part of you that does not rush to judgment. Rather, it stands vigilant and patient in the tragic gap almost every moment offers. It is a riverbed of mercy. It is vast, silent, restful, and resourceful, and it receives and also lets go of all the comings and goings. It is awareness itself, as opposed to judgment itself. And awareness is not as such thinking. It refuses to be pulled into the emotional and mental tugs of war that most of life is. before it is forever over and gone. To look out from the untouchable silence is what we mean by contemplation. In her interior castle, St. Teresa of Avila says, "The soul is spacious, plentiful, and its amplitude is impossible to exaggerate. The sun here radiates in every part, and nothing can diminish its beauty. This is your soul. It is God in you. It is your true self." Those words from Immortal Diamond by Richard Rohr. And now we come to a time for prayer and for meditation. It will be followed by some time of silent prayer and the musical meditation, Jerusalema. Loving God, mysterious God, although physically apart, we are together today as a spiritual community. Our hearts are often filled with worries at this time. We are living in unsettling times, with the coronavirus lockdown being eased and then tightened again in many areas. And while we may welcome measures that allow us a little more freedom, I think we are ever aware of the dangers in this time of COVID-19. So let us send comforting thoughts and prayers to all who are in fear, those in sorrow, those who are grieving. But let us remember too to comfort ourselves so that we remain strong. And let's continue to remember those in the front line of the fight against the pandemic, to pay tribute to them in the dangers they face, and give thanks for their commitment and courage. And may we send healing thoughts to all who are ill and suffering, particularly to families and loved ones of those who've lost their lives in this pandemic. And if we could hold in loving memory in particular those who've died in the past few months, members of this congregation, Mavis Dearden and Sue Halgate. We remember them for their contributions to our chapel and, in Mavis's case, to the cause of Unitarianism more widely. But we remember them as bright and faithful spirits who contributed so much to the life of this congregation. In the time of silence before our meditation.
ungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami ilondoloze 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 zungangishilana ilondoloze ilondoloze ilondoloze.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. A bit different. Jerusalem, Kaya Lami, that's my home. And as I say, it's taken much of the world by storm, that both song and dance. And it expresses a kind of wholeness, I think, the wholeness of mind and body. So wholeness, in fact, is the theme today. But what do we mean by this? Is it the same as integrity? And how should we find wholeness? Can we do so? Well, our readings might help us. The first was from the first Psalm of the Hebrew Bible, which told us that those who delight in the law of the world, delight in the law of the Lord, are like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. So the psalmist compares the righteous here to a tree that always bears its fruit in season. Everything it does prospers. These beautiful lines suggest to me the qualities of wholeness, of fullness, plenitude. And the implication seems to be, if humans, like plants, follow their natural course, they too will bear fruit. Their leaves will not wither. Their very destiny will flourish. But of course, we aren't plants, are we? We humans have free will, and we can choose to express or not express our essential natures. And the psalmist seems to know this only too well. He tells us the wicked, the sinners, the mockers are not like this. In fact, they choose a path of destruction. It's only those who follow the way of the Lord, who meditate on this law night and day. Only they will flourish. The psalmist is saying the law of the Lord must be our guide for life, that we need an external guide if we are to live truly, even if we can internalize it a bit by meditating on it night and day. But do we need an external guide? Could we have an internal guide instead, I wonder? You may recall that you'll recall that reading we've just heard from that spiritual writer, Richard Rohr, who is a strong critic of the church and its failings, yet he remains a Franciscan priest in the Roman Catholic Church. A recent book of his, Immortal Diamond, is subtitled The Search for Our True Self. And he suggests we all have an inner guide within us, a law, divine law, a part of God even. And an extract from that book, Immortal Diamond, formed the second reading today. The passage that began, There is something in you that is not touched by coming and going, by up and down, by for or against, by the raucous teams of totally right and totally wrong. So there's something in you, in us all, that is not touched by others' opinions, by mob opinion. Clearly, we can all be influenced by others, much too much, I'm sure, in my case, much too often. But there's something inside me, that Richard Rohr is saying, that stands apart, and in all of us. But what is it? Quoting from the book, there is a part of you that is patient, that does not rush to judgment, that is a riverbed of mercy, and is vast, silent, restful, and resourceful. It is awareness itself. Our author goes on to quote the Carmelite mystic Teresa of Avila, calling this inner silent self the soul, and spacious, plentiful, radiating beauty. Richard Rohr concludes, this is your soul. It is God in you. It is your true self. So this then is your essence, your immortal diamond of the book's title, which is a phrase, by the way, from a Gerard Manley Hopkins poem. So, wow, do I really have all of that inside me? God as well. How wonderful. How wonderful I must be. But wait a minute. I'm not always a riverbed of mercy, am I? No, you certainly aren't. Because although Richard Rohr writes of a true self within you, he also writes about a false self too, in each one of us. What's that then? What's the false self? Well, the false self is like the front of the house, man or woman, the one on display, the self that others see. You could call it your ego, and it encompasses all the worst parts of the ego: greed, selfishness, enmity, vanity, lust. Need I go on? But paradoxically, Richard Rohr asserts, the false self is not all bad. In fact, it's necessary. It's necessary for developing and sustaining adulthood. It's the professional you or me, our mask almost, that we grow into as nurses, teachers, builders, bakers, journalists, and even ministers. We all have our roles to play in society, and all these, according to Richard Rohr, are aspects of our false self, but wholly necessary. The only danger being that we can limit ourselves to those roles and those roles alone, or we can limit ourselves to our false self alone. And yet we have a deeper self, which our author calls the true self. And I think we all appreciate that we do have a deeper self somewhere. Our conscience alone tells us that. It can be a mighty force, way beyond the control of our conscious minds or of our wills, our conscience alone. Another example, when we are truly in love, we know that love comes from a far deeper place than we can even fathom. Why does this matter, though? Well, firstly, if we live only in our false selves, we live very limited lives. Each in our own little box, separated from others and from the greater forces of life and of love. So crucially for our theme today, wholeness and integrity, we need to learn how to bring the two parts of ourselves, the false self and the true self, into harmony. We need to become more whole, no longer divided selves, but able more and more to live and to love from our whole selves, our whole beings. These are metaphors, of course. They simplify, but I hope this is a model that resonates. And the model takes us further because Richard Rohr asserts that our true self represents the divine in us, God, in each one of us. And this is the traditional understanding of the soul. It's that part of ourselves which is connected to that greater reality of which we are all part, to the divine, to the spirit of the universe, to God. This is the perennial tradition in religion, that which is common to all religions and faiths, asserting that the goal of religion is divine union, connectedness to all. And by realizing your true self, you become one with the divine other, with God, with the greater spirit of the universe. So in the words of the oldest surviving scriptures, the Vedas, Tat Tam Asi, in ancient Sanskrit, which can translate as you are that, or you are the eternal, but also you are what you seek. And this is our destiny, the destiny of us all. Our life's work is perhaps to realize this and to attain it, or to voyage towards it. But how can we do this? How is that possible? Well, firstly, by becoming more aware of this deeper self within, listening to it more, even acting from it sometimes. How though? Well, I think we need to slow down a bit sometimes so we can listen and inhabit our deeper selves. And it is in moments of stillness, in prayer, meditation, or contemplation, that we can move into that deeper realm, that deeper being. And we can find guidance there, wisdom even, that should help us lead lives of greater wholeness, lives of greater integrity. And we ask that it be so. Amen. And now let's join together in singing our final hymn, that wonderful hymn based on Beethoven's Ode to Joy. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. It's 117 in the Green Hymn Book.
Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, hail thee as the sun above. Field and forest, vale and mountain, blooming meadow, flashing sea, chanting bird and flowing fountain, call us to rejoice in thee. Thou art giving and forgiving, ever blessing, ever blessed, wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth of happy rest. Thou our parent, Christ our brother, all who live in love are thine. Teach us how to love each other, lift us to the joy divine. Mortals join the mighty chorus, which the morning stars recall. Parent love is reigning o'er us, kindred love binds each to all. Ever singing, march we onward, victors in the midst of strife. Joyful music leads us onward in the triumph song of life.
So to the benediction. Let us go forward today, more attentive to our deeper selves, the divine within, finding there the wisdom to guide us through the joys and the hardships of life. And may the blessings of the God of love go with us today and on all our journeys. Amen. And we say together now, though we extinguish the light of this candle, our faith burns on, our vision remains bright, our fellowship warm, and our yearnings for peace, justice, and the life of the Spirit constant. So be it until we meet again. And before, just to remind you, after we have Go Now in Peace and the organ postlude, towards the end of that or at the end, make a tea or coffee and we can all join together for, or as many of you who can, let's join together to have a conversation and tea afterwards. Thank you, Robert.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere.